While a father fought for his life on an operating table in the Philippines, his daughter promoted her husband's comedy stunt on social media. For decades, we've watched royal families navigate tragedy with dignity, seen them put duty before personal desires, witnessed their commitment to family bonds even in the darkest moments. But what happens when those bonds are severed completely? When a daughter erases a father who raised her, who sacrificed everything for her success, who loved her unconditionally? And what does it reveal about a marriage when both partners choose publicity stunts over basic human decency at the moment when it matters most? Join us as we uncover the shocking truth about the night Thomas Markle underwent life-changing emergency surgery, while Meghan Markle posted Instagram promotions for Prince Harry's appearance on a late-night comedy show. This isn't just another story about family estrangement. This is about the moment that will define Harry and Meghan in the same way that proceeding with the Oprah Winfrey interview while Prince Philip lay dying in hospital did. This is about choices that reveal character, about timing that exposes priorities, about a couple so disconnected from basic human empathy that they've become unrecognizable even to those who once supported them. It all began quietly in the early morning hours of December 4th, 2024, in a hospital in the Philippines. Thomas Markle, the 79-year-old father who had raised Meghan as a single parent, who had worked double shifts as a Hollywood lighting director to afford her private school education, who had been her biggest champion before she met Prince Harry, was being rushed into emergency surgery. The situation was critical, life-threatening, requiring immediate intervention to save his life. His daughter, Samantha Markle, Thomas's eldest child from his first marriage, was receiving updates throughout the night, terrified that her father might not survive. At that exact moment, at approximately 3 a.m. Pacific time, Dan Wootton, a British journalist and close friend of the Markle family, was awake and communicating with Samantha about her father's condition. The worry was overwhelming, the fear palpable. Thomas was undergoing a procedure that Samantha later described as life-changing, something so serious that the family chose not to reveal the specific details publicly out of respect for Thomas's privacy. In a statement released shortly after the surgery, Samantha said that the situation was much worse than they had initially thought, that her father would need extensive care moving forward, that his life had been permanently altered by whatever medical emergency had necessitated the surgery. In those dark early morning hours, as Thomas fought for his life and his family waited in anguished uncertainty, Dan Wootton saw a notification on his phone. Meghan Markle had posted something on her Instagram account. For just a moment, he allowed himself to hope. Perhaps she had finally embraced her humanity. Perhaps this was a message to her father, a moment of reconciliation before it was too late. Perhaps she was finally going to let bygones be bygones and reunite with the man who raised her, the man she truly loved before she met Prince Harry, and everything changed. But that hope was immediately crushed. Meghan Markle was not posting about her father. She was not acknowledging his medical crisis. She was not reaching out with compassion or concern. Instead, she was promoting a truly deranged appearance by her husband, Prince Harry, who had decided to go ahead filming a stunt with Stephen Colbert, the left-wing U.S. late-night chat show host. The timing was not coincidental. Harry's appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert was scheduled to promote Meghan's Netflix cooking special With Love, Meghan, which was being released that same day. The stunt itself was mortifying on multiple levels. In the pre-recorded segment, Stephen Colbert asked Prince Harry what he would want if he were treated like a king for a day. Harry's response was to have Colbert beg for him. What followed was an excruciating display of the fifth in line to the British throne, demanding that an American talk show host literally get on his knees and beg repeatedly while Harry sat in mock royal superiority. It was tone-deaf, embarrassing, beneath the dignity of someone born into one of the world's most respected institutions. It made Harry look petulant, privileged, disconnected from reality. But the content of the stunt was nothing compared to the timing. This segment was recorded and promoted while Thomas Markle was in hospital fighting for his life. While a father underwent emergency surgery that would permanently change his existence, his son-in-law was performing comedy bits for American television. While a family waited in terror to see if their patriarch would survive, Meghan was using her social media platform to drive viewership for that comedy bit, to promote her husband's appearance to generate buzz for her cooking special. Royal commentator Tom Sykes, speaking in the hours after the surgery, called it a despicable new low. The parallel to another infamous moment of terrible timing was impossible to ignore. In March 2021, Harry and Meghan had proceeded with their bombshell Oprah Winfrey interview, despite knowing that Prince Philip, Harry's 99-year-old grandfather, was seriously ill in hospital. The interview aired while Philip remained hospitalized, dealing with a heart condition that would contribute to his death just weeks later on April 9, 2021. The couple had chosen publicity, ratings, and their own narrative over consideration for a dying family member. Now, in December 2024, they were making the same choice again. Harry had chosen to participate in a comedy stunt rather than cancel or postpone out of respect for his father-in-law's medical crisis. Meghan had chosen to promote that stunt rather than maintain silence or express concern for her father. Both had chosen their public image and commercial ventures over basic human decency toward a man who was, regardless of their estrangement, fighting for his life. To understand how Meghan Markle could make such a choice, how she could be so thoroughly disconnected from her father that she wouldn't even pause her promotional activities during his medical emergency, we need to understand the relationship that once existed between them and how completely it has been destroyed. Thomas Wayne Markle was born on July 18, 1944, in Newport, Pennsylvania. He built a successful career in Hollywood as a lighting director, winning an Emmy Award for his work on the soap opera General Hospital. He married Doria Ragland, a social worker and yoga instructor, in December 1979. Their daughter, Rachel Meghan Markle, was born on August 4, 1981, in Los Angeles, California. Thomas and Doria divorced when Meghan was 6 years old, and Thomas became Meghan's primary parent, raising her while maintaining his demanding career in television production. By all accounts, from people who knew the family during Meghan's childhood and teenage years, Thomas was a devoted, loving father who made enormous sacrifices for his daughter's success. He worked long hours, often double and triple shifts, to afford Meghan's tuition at Immaculate Heart High School, an elite all-girls Catholic private school in Los Angeles where tuition cost approximately $15,000 per year in the 1990s. He drove her to auditions, supported her acting ambitions, paid for acting classes and headshots, helped her navigate the competitive entertainment industry. Video footage from Meghan's high school graduation shows the genuine affection between father and daughter. Meghan, fresh-faced and beaming in her graduation gown, spots her father filming her moment of triumph. Her face lights up with pure, unfiltered joy and love. She rushes over to greet him, playful and affectionate, clearly comfortable with him in a way that speaks to years of closeness and trust. This was not a distant or difficult relationship. This was a loving father-daughter bond built on years of mutual support and genuine care. Thomas continued supporting Meghan as she built her acting career, celebrating her success when she landed her breakout role on Suits in 2011. He visited her on set in Toronto, met her co-stars, took pride in her accomplishments. When she began dating Prince Harry in 2016, Thomas was thrilled for his daughter, excited about her happiness, looking forward to welcoming Harry into the family. But then came the events leading up to the wedding on May 19, 2018, events that would permanently fracture the relationship between father and daughter. In the weeks before the wedding, Thomas Markle became the target of intense paparazzi attention. Photographers camped outside his modest home in Rosarito, Mexico, where he'd retired to live quietly. They followed him everywhere, took unflattering photos of him buying beer in sweatpants, made his life unbearable with constant surveillance. Thomas made a decision he would later acknowledge as a terrible mistake. He cooperated with a photographer to stage more flattering pictures of himself preparing for the wedding. He was photographed measuring himself for a suit, looking at photos of Meghan and Harry on a computer, appearing to prepare for his role in his daughter's historic wedding. He was paid approximately $130,000 for these staged photos. When the arrangement was exposed by the media, it became an enormous scandal that dominated headlines in the crucial final days before the wedding. Thomas has said repeatedly in interviews since then that he deeply regrets cooperating with the photographer, that he was pressured and naive, that he didn't understand how seriously it would be taken. He claims he did it partly for the money, but also because he was tired of the unflattering, candid photos and wanted some control over his image before his daughter's wedding. Regardless of his motivations, the scandal was devastating. Within days of the story breaking, Thomas suffered a heart attack. He was hospitalized in Mexico, unable to travel to the United Kingdom for the wedding. He begged Meghan to postpone the ceremony so he could attend once he recovered, telling her that walking her down the aisle was one of the most important moments of his life and he couldn't bear to miss it. Meghan refused. She told him the wedding would proceed as scheduled and that Prince Charles would walk her down the aisle instead, at least for the final portion after she walked the first section alone. On May 19, 2018, Thomas Markle watched his only daughter get married on television from a hospital bed in Mexico, having been replaced by his daughter's future father-in-law. It was the last time he would have any real communication with Meghan. In the weeks after the wedding, Meghan reportedly sent Thomas a letter. The contents of that letter became the subject of a lawsuit when Thomas shared it with the Mail on Sunday, which published portions of it. Meghan sued the newspaper for breach of privacy and copyright infringement, ultimately winning the case. But the portions of the letter that were made public revealed Meghan's feelings toward her father. She accused him of breaking her heart into a million pieces, of fabricating stories about her to the media, of causing her pain that she would never forget. Thomas's response, also made public during the legal proceedings, expressed his hurt and confusion. He said he had always loved his daughter, had always supported her, and didn't understand how their relationship had deteriorated so completely. He said he had tried repeatedly to reach out to Meghan and Harry, to explain his actions, to apologize for his mistakes, to rebuild their relationship. Every attempt was rebuffed. He was blocked from contacting them directly. His phone calls and messages went unanswered. His daughter had effectively erased him from her life. In the 6 years since the wedding, Thomas Markle has given numerous interviews to tabloid newspapers and television programs. He has expressed his heartbreak at being cut off from his daughter and grandchildren. He has criticized Harry and Meghan's decision to leave the royal family and move to California, saying they had a duty to continue their royal service. He has defended himself against accusations that he sold stories about Meghan to the media, saying he only spoke publicly because she refused to speak to him privately. He has said repeatedly that he would do anything for a chance to reconcile with his daughter, to meet his grandchildren Archie and Lilibet, to heal the rift that has defined the final years of his life. Meghan's response to all of this has been silence. She has never spoken publicly about her father since the wedding. She has never acknowledged his attempts at contact. She has never explained her decision to cut him out of her life so completely. In her Netflix documentary series Harry and Meghan, released in December 2022, she barely mentioned him. In her cooking special With Love, Meghan, released on December 4, 2024, she spoke at length about family traditions, about how Christmas ornaments tell the story of a family's journey, about nostalgia and memories and connection. But there was no ornament for Thomas, no photo of him, no acknowledgement that he had been the primary parent who raised her, who made her success possible through his sacrifices. Royal commentators and body language experts have analyzed Meghan's behavior toward her father extensively. Many conclude that she suffers from what psychologists call mirroring, where a person completely cuts off anyone who displeases them, erasing them from their life as if they never existed. This behavior pattern appears consistent across Meghan's life. She has ended multiple friendships abruptly, cut off her half-siblings, severed ties with nearly everyone from her pre-royal life. Harry's family has experienced the same treatment. After the couple left royal life in January 2020, Harry stopped speaking to his brother, Prince William, had minimal contact with his father, King Charles III, and never reconciled with other family members he'd once been close to. The pattern suggests that Meghan's influence on Harry has fundamentally changed how he relates to family. Harry, who had been close to William growing up, who had maintained relationships with cousins and other relatives despite his mother's death and his struggles with mental health, became increasingly isolated after meeting Meghan. Friends from his military days stopped hearing from him. Longtime palace staff who had worked with him for years found themselves frozen out. His relationship with his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, once warm and supportive, became strained and formal. This context makes the events of December 4th, 2024, even more disturbing. This wasn't an isolated incident of poor judgment or unfortunate timing. This was part of a consistent pattern of behavior where Harry and Meghan prioritized their public image, their commercial ventures, and their own narrative over relationships, over empathy, over basic human decency. Tom Sykes, the royal commentator and founder of the Royalist Substack, made a crucial observation in his analysis of the incident. He noted that Meghan has become known as the Queen of Terrible Timing, with a remarkable ability to make catastrophically poor decisions about when to do things. Leaving the royal family at the very beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in March 2020, proceeding with the Oprah interview while Prince Philip was dying, releasing a statement about privacy on the day of Prince Philip's funeral, launching her lifestyle brand on the same day that Catherine, Princess of Wales, announced her cancer diagnosis, and now promoting Harry's comedy stunt while her father underwent emergency surgery. Some of these timing conflicts might be coincidental, but the pattern suggests something more troubling: a fundamental inability or unwillingness to consider how her actions will be perceived in context, a disconnection from the normal human impulse to pause or adjust plans when circumstances demand sensitivity. Most people, if they learned their father was in emergency surgery, would stop whatever they were doing. They would certainly not post promotional content on social media. They would not proceed with scheduled television appearances as if nothing were wrong. The fact that both Harry and Meghan did exactly that reveals something profound about who they have become. The incident also exposed the deep hypocrisy at the heart of Meghan's carefully curated public image. On the very day that her father was fighting for his life, Meghan released With Love, Meghan, her Netflix cooking special that was supposed to position her as an authority on homemaking, entertaining, and family traditions. In the special, she speaks extensively about how the holidays are a time for family, for connection, for honoring relationships through thoughtful traditions. She discusses how Christmas tree ornaments tell the story of a family's journey, marking milestones and preserving memories across generations. The contrast between Meghan's words in the special and her actions toward her own father could not be more stark. She speaks beautifully about family while having cut off nearly every member of her own family. She waxes poetic about traditions while having destroyed the traditions and relationships that once defined her life. She positions herself as an expert on connection while being fundamentally disconnected from basic human empathy. Royal commentators noted that this hypocrisy severely undermined whatever remained of Meghan's credibility as a lifestyle guru or public figure. How can anyone take seriously a person who preaches about family values while refusing to speak to her dying father? How can audiences trust someone who talks about authenticity while performing such obviously inauthentic domesticity? The answer, increasingly, is that they cannot and do not. The Netflix special itself was already facing significant criticism before the news about Thomas's surgery broke. Viewers noted that Meghan was filming in a rented mansion, not her actual home. She was preparing elaborate dishes that no one would eat. She was wearing jewelry worth thousands of dollars while mixing ingredients without proper food safety protocols, leading to the viral nickname Salmonella Sussex. She featured celebrity friends offering generic praise that felt scripted and insincere. The whole production felt hollow, performative, disconnected from any authentic reality. When news broke about Thomas's surgery and Meghan's decision to promote Harry's comedy stunt at that exact moment, the criticism intensified exponentially. Social media erupted with condemnation from people across the political spectrum. Even some who had previously defended Meghan found this behavior indefensible. The trending topics on Twitter included Meghan Markle, Thomas Markle, Stephen Colbert, and Prince Harry, with the vast majority of comments expressing disgust, disbelief, and anger at the couple's actions. The impact on public opinion was immediate and devastating. Harry and Meghan's favorability ratings in the United Kingdom, already at historic lows, dropped even further. A YouGov poll conducted in the days following the incident found that only 9% of British adults had a positive view of Meghan, with 73% viewing her negatively. Harry's numbers were only slightly better, with 14% positive and 67% negative. These numbers represented their worst polling ever, worse even than Prince Andrew, whose reputation had been destroyed by his association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. In the United States, where Harry and Meghan had maintained stronger support, Particularly among younger and more progressive demographics, their approval ratings also declined significantly. The incident transcended political divisions. People across the spectrum could recognize the basic human failing of promoting entertainment content while your father fights for his life in surgery. It wasn't a matter of left versus right, pro-royal versus anti-royal, British versus American. It was simply a matter of decency, empathy, humanity, qualities that Harry and Meghan demonstrably lacked in that moment. The professional consequences were swift and significant. Netflix, already reportedly frustrated with Harry and Meghan's slow content production and declining cultural relevance, was said to be furious about the negative publicity surrounding the release of With Love, Meghan. The special was supposed to launch Meghan's lifestyle brand and prove she could create compelling content beyond simply talking about herself and her grievances against the royal family. Instead, it became associated with one of the most tone-deaf moments in recent celebrity history. Multiple entertainment industry sources confirmed in the days following the incident that Netflix would not be renewing their partnership with Harry and Meghan when the current contract expires. The decision had apparently been made before the Thomas Markle surgery incident, but that incident eliminated any possibility of reconsideration. Netflix executives reportedly felt that the couple's brand had become too toxic, too controversial, too unpredictable to justify continued investment. The collapse of the Netflix partnership represented a catastrophic failure for Harry and Meghan's post-royal strategy. The deal, reportedly worth between $100 million and $150 million over 5 years, was supposed to secure their financial future and establish them as serious content creators. They'd produced only a handful of projects, with only their first documentary series, Harry and Meghan, achieving significant viewership. Everything else had underperformed dramatically, failing to justify the massive investment or generate sustainable audience interest. Without Netflix's guaranteed payments, the couple faced serious financial pressure. They have enormous expenses: the mortgage on their $14.65 million Montecito estate, security costs running into millions annually, staff salaries, travel expenses, and the need to maintain an image of success and luxury. Harry's memoir, Spare, released in January 2023, had provided significant income initially, but book sales had declined sharply after the first few months. Speaking fees and appearance payments had also declined as the couple's popularity waned. The financial strain was reportedly creating significant tension in the marriage. Harry, according to sources close to the couple, felt guilty about the income pressure, about his inability to provide the security and stability he'd promised when they left royal life. He'd assured Meghan they could make it work, that his inheritance from his mother, Princess Diana, and his great-grandmother, the Queen Mother, would provide a cushion while they built new careers. But the reality had proven far more challenging than either of them anticipated. Meghan, meanwhile, was said to be resentful that Harry's family connections, the one asset they'd tried to monetize, had become so damaged that they were now liabilities rather than strengths. She'd given up her acting career, her independence, her own family relationships to marry into the royal family and support Harry's vision. Now she was in California, professionally adrift, financially insecure, watching her dreams of becoming the next Martha Stewart or Gwyneth Paltrow slip away with each failed project. The couple's differing visions for their future had become another source of tension. Harry never wanted to be a Hollywood content producer or lifestyle influencer. He'd envisioned using whatever platform he had to continue his mother's legacy of charitable work, particularly around veterans issues, mental health, and conservation. But he'd gotten pulled into Meghan's vision of building an entertainment and lifestyle empire, of becoming celebrities who parlayed fame into business success. That vision wasn't working, and Harry could see it clearly. He was watching his reputation crumble, his family relationships disintegrate, his standing in his home country collapse to historic lows, all in service of a dream that was never his to begin with. The Thomas Markle surgery incident crystallized all of these tensions and failures into one defining moment. It revealed who Harry and Meghan truly are beneath the carefully constructed public image. It showed that they value publicity over family, commercial success over human decency, controlling their narrative over basic empathy. It demonstrated that they have learned nothing from previous incidents of terrible timing and poor judgment. It suggested that they are so isolated in their Montecito bubble, so surrounded by enablers and yes people, that they've lost touch with normal human responses to crisis and tragedy. Royal biographers and commentators have drawn explicit parallels between the Thomas Markle surgery incident and the Oprah interview proceeding while Prince Philip lay dying. Both incidents revealed the same fundamental character flaw: an inability or unwillingness to pause their own agenda even briefly out of respect for family members facing medical crises. In both cases, Harry and Meghan chose publicity, ratings, and their own narrative over consideration for others. In both cases, they faced intense criticism and saw their public standing decline significantly. In both cases, they seemed genuinely surprised by the backlash, unable to understand why people found their behavior so offensive. The parallel extends even further when considering the content of both the Oprah interview and Harry's Stephen Colbert appearance. The Oprah interview was supposed to be Harry and Meghan's moment to control their narrative, to tell their story on their own terms, to expose the racism and cruelty they'd experienced within the royal family. Instead, it made them look like complainers, victims playing the race card, privileged people attacking an elderly woman and her dying husband. The interview damaged their reputation far more than it damaged the monarchy they'd attacked. Similarly, Harry's Stephen Colbert appearance was supposed to be a lighthearted promotional opportunity, a chance to show his fun side and generate buzz for Meghan's Netflix special. Instead, it made him look petulant, desperate for attention, willing to demean himself for American television ratings. The stunt of demanding that Colbert literally beg on his knees was meant to be funny but came across as revealing Harry's entitled attitude, his inflated sense of importance, his fundamental unsuitability for the Hollywood celebrity world he's trying to inhabit. The fact that both Harry and Meghan proceeded with these appearances despite knowing about family medical crises suggests a pattern of behavior that goes beyond simple poor judgment. It suggests a fundamental inability to prioritize appropriately, to understand context, to respond with normal human empathy to situations that demand it. Most people, when faced with a family member's medical emergency, experience a shift in perspective. Suddenly, the things that seemed important, promotional appearances, social media posts, commercial ventures, fade into insignificance compared to the human crisis at hand. Harry and Meghan do not seem to experience this shift. They proceed with their scheduled activities regardless of context, regardless of timing, regardless of how it will be perceived. This inability to pause, to adjust, to respond appropriately to changing circumstances has defined their post-royal life and has contributed significantly to their declining public standing. The incident also raised serious questions about the couple's judgment and the advice they're receiving from their team. Any competent public relations professional would have immediately recognized the problem with promoting Harry's comedy appearance while Thomas was in surgery. Any reasonable advisor would have suggested delaying the Instagram post, canceling the appearance, or at minimum issuing a statement expressing concern for Thomas's health. The fact that none of this happened suggests that Harry and Meghan are either not receiving competent professional advice or are ignoring the advice they do receive. Some royal watchers speculated that Harry and Meghan's isolation in Montecito has created an echo chamber where they only hear from people who agree with them, who tell them what they want to hear, who enable their worst instincts rather than challenging them. They've cut off nearly everyone who might offer honest feedback or alternative perspectives. They're surrounded by people who depend on them financially or professionally, people who have every incentive to go along with their decisions rather than push back. This isolation has left them increasingly disconnected from reality, from normal human social dynamics, from the basic common sense that would tell most people not to promote entertainment content while your father is in emergency surgery. The response from the Markle family, particularly Samantha Markle, was swift and emotional. Samantha, who has been her father's most vocal defender in the media, expressed her disgust at Meghan's behavior in multiple interviews. She said that her father had always loved Meghan, had sacrificed everything for her success, and deserved better than to be treated like he didn't exist. She said that Thomas was heartbroken by the estrangement, that he desperately wanted to meet his grandchildren, that he didn't understand how his relationship with his daughter had deteriorated so completely. Samantha also revealed that Thomas's surgery had been even more serious than initially reported. While she declined to share specific medical details out of respect for her father's privacy, she said that Thomas had undergone a life-changing procedure, that he would require extensive ongoing care, that his quality of life had been permanently affected. She expressed hope that the medical crisis might finally prompt Meghan to reach out, to let bygones be bygones, to allow her father back into her life before it was too late. That hope, as we now know, was misplaced. The broader royal family watched these events unfold with a mixture of sadness and vindication. They had experienced firsthand Meghan's pattern of cutting people off, of burning bridges, of prioritizing grievance over reconciliation. They'd tried to warn Harry that his marriage was changing him, isolating him, pulling him away from the values and relationships that had once defined him. Harry had rejected those warnings, choosing Meghan over his family, believing her narrative that they were the victims of institutional racism and media persecution. King Charles III, who had walked Meghan down the aisle at her wedding after Thomas's heart attack prevented him from attending, was reportedly deeply saddened by the Thomas Markle surgery incident. Charles had tried to be welcoming to Meghan, had defended her against early criticism, had hoped she would bring fresh energy and perspective to the monarchy. He'd watched with increasing dismay as the relationship deteriorated, as Harry and Meghan made increasingly destructive choices, as bridges were burned that might never be rebuilt. Prince William, Harry's older brother and the heir to the throne, had long since written off any possibility of reconciliation with Harry and Meghan. William had experienced Meghan's behavior firsthand during her brief time as a working royal. He'd witnessed how she treated staff, how she responded to any suggestion or feedback, how she seemed constitutionally incapable of accepting that she might be wrong about anything. He'd tried to warn Harry, had expressed concerns about the pace of the relationship, had suggested his brother take more time before committing to marriage. Harry had interpreted William's caution as disapproval and disloyalty, driving a wedge between the brothers that has never healed. Catherine, Princess of Wales, had perhaps the most personal understanding of what Thomas Markle was experiencing. Catherine had joined the royal family as an outsider, marrying into the institution after dating William for nearly a decade. She'd adapted to royal life, learned from experienced courtiers, maintained her family relationships while taking on royal duties. She'd watched Meghan refuse to do any of these things, had experienced Meghan's coldness and hostility during the brief period they were both working royals, had seen how Meghan's behavior affected Harry and the entire family. When Catherine was diagnosed with cancer in early 2024, facing her own health crisis and uncertainty about her future, Meghan had chosen that exact day to launch her lifestyle brand American Riviera Orchard. The timing was either spectacularly insensitive or deliberately cruel, another example of Meghan's pattern of terrible timing. Catherine, with characteristic grace, had not responded publicly to this latest provocation. She'd focused on her treatment, her family, and her recovery, demonstrating the dignity and strength that had made her one of the most admired members of the royal family. The contrast between Catherine's response to her cancer diagnosis and Meghan's response to her father's surgery could not be more stark. Catherine had handled her health crisis with privacy and dignity, sharing information only when necessary and in ways that might help others facing similar challenges. She'd continued her royal duties when able, had maintained her family relationships, had shown strength and grace under extraordinary pressure. Meghan, by contrast, had used her father's medical crisis as just another day for self-promotion, had shown no empathy or concern, had demonstrated once again that her public image and commercial ventures take priority over everything else, including basic human decency toward her own father. The incident also highlighted the fundamental difference between service and self-promotion, between genuine commitment to helping others and performative displays of virtue. Catherine's Christmas Carol service, released around the same time as Meghan's cooking special, featured a heartfelt message about community, about the simple acts of kindness that create meaningful change, about reaching out with generosity of heart. There were no commercial partnerships, no product placements, no attempts to monetize the holiday spirit, just authentic service. Meghan's Christmas special, by contrast, was entirely commercial, entirely self-promotional, entirely disconnected from any genuine spirit of service or giving. It was about building her brand, selling her lifestyle, positioning herself as an expert on entertaining and homemaking. The fact that she released this content and promoted it actively while her father was in surgery revealed which version of Christmas she truly valued. Not the version about family and connection, but the version about commercial success and personal advancement. Royal commentators noted that the incident represented a turning point in how Harry and Meghan would be remembered by history. Every public figure faces defining moments, incidents that crystallize public perception and become central to their legacy. For Harry and Meghan, the Thomas Markle surgery incident joined the Oprah interview during Prince Philip's illness as defining moments that revealed their true character and priorities. These incidents matter because they strip away the carefully constructed narrative and show what people do when faced with real moral choices. Harry and Meghan have spent years crafting a story about themselves as victims, as progressive activists, as champions of compassion and mental health and social justice. But when confronted with actual opportunities to demonstrate compassion, to prioritize family over commercial interests, to show basic human decency, they have repeatedly failed. The defense offered by their remaining supporters rang increasingly hollow. Some argued that the timing was coincidental, that Harry's appearance had been scheduled long before Thomas's surgery. But that defense actually makes things worse, because it means Harry and Meghan could have canceled or postponed the appearance and the promotional posts, but chose not to. Others argued that Thomas Markle had forfeited any right to concern or consideration through his behavior before and after the wedding. But this defense is morally bankrupt, suggesting that past mistakes justify current cruelty, that estrangement excuses basic inhumanity. The most sophisticated defense came from those who argued that Meghan's relationship with her father is private, that we don't know the full story, that there may be legitimate reasons for the estrangement that haven't been made public. This argument has some merit in general, as many people have complicated or even impossible relationships with their parents for valid reasons. But it fails in this specific context because Meghan herself has made family relationships central to her public brand. She talks extensively about family, about connection, about traditions. She positions herself as an authority on creating loving homes and meaningful relationships. She cannot simultaneously claim that her family relationships are too private to discuss, while also building a public brand around family values. Moreover, regardless of the state of their relationship, most people would pause promotional activities during a family member's medical emergency. This isn't about reconciliation or forgiveness or resolving past grievances. It's about basic human decency, about recognizing that there are moments when commercial considerations should take a back seat to human crises. Harry and Meghan's failure to make this recognition says everything about who they have become. The incident also raised questions about Harry's judgment and his transformation since meeting Meghan. The Harry, who served in Afghanistan, who founded the Invictus Games, who continued his mother's work with HIV/AIDS charities, would never have participated in a comedy stunt while his father-in-law was in surgery. That Harry understood duty, sacrifice, putting others before himself. The current Harry, the one demanding that Stephen Colbert beg on his knees for laughs, the one proceeding with promotional activities despite his father-in-law's medical crisis, is a different person entirely. Many royal watchers believe that Meghan's influence has fundamentally changed Harry, and not for the better. She's isolated him from his family, his friends, his support systems. She's encouraged his worst instincts toward grievance and victimhood. She's pulled him into commercial ventures that demean him and chip away at whatever dignity he retained from his royal upbringing. She's made him complicit in behavior that most people, including his former self, would recognize as cruel and indefensible. Some psychological experts who've studied the couple's public behavior suggest that Harry may be experiencing a form of coercive control where one partner systematically isolates the other from outside relationships and influences, making them dependent and unable to see beyond the relationship. The signs are there. The severed family relationships, the abandoned friendships, the geographic isolation in Montecito, the financial dependence on commercial ventures they pursue together, the shared narrative of victimhood that binds them together against the outside world. Whether Harry is a victim of coercive control or simply a willing participant in destructive behavior patterns, the result is the same. He's become someone unrecognizable from the prince he once was. The transformation is sad to witness, particularly for those who remember Harry's better moments, his military service, his charitable work, his genuine connection with ordinary people. That Harry seems gone, replaced by someone who makes comedy appearances while his father-in-law fights for life in surgery, someone who has lost sight of basic human decency in pursuit of fame and commercial success. The future for Harry and Meghan looks increasingly uncertain in the wake of the Thomas Markle surgery incident. Their Netflix deal is ending without renewal. Their brand has become toxic in key markets. Their favorability ratings have collapsed to historic lows. Their marriage shows signs of strain under financial and professional pressures. They're approaching middle age with no clear path forward, no sustainable career prospects, no meaningful relationships outside their immediate household. The incident also eliminated any remaining possibility of reconciliation with the royal family. King Charles and Prince William had drawn a line. Harry and Meghan could return to the family fold only if they stopped the public attacks, ended the commercial exploitation of royal connections, and demonstrated through actions that they could be trusted again. The Thomas Markle surgery incident proved that they cannot be trusted, that they will always prioritize their own interests over basic decency, that they've learned nothing from previous incidents of terrible judgment. For Thomas Markle, recovering from his life-changing surgery in the Philippines, the incident confirmed what he'd known for years. His daughter had truly cut him off completely, erasing him from her life as if he'd never existed. There would be no deathbed reconciliation, no moment of forgiveness before it was too late. Meghan had made her choice, and that choice was to promote her husband's comedy appearance rather than pause for even a moment to acknowledge her father's medical crisis. The sadness of this situation extends beyond the immediate players to the children, Archie and Lilibet, who will grow up never knowing their grandfather Thomas. They'll never hear his stories about raising their mother, about his career in Hollywood, about the sacrifices he made for Meghan's success. They'll never experience his love, his perspective, his connection to half their heritage. Their mother's choice to cut off her father has deprived them of a relationship they can never recover. Similarly, Archie and Lilibet are growing up without knowing their grandfather, King Charles, their uncle, Prince William, their aunt Catherine, their cousins George, Charlotte, and Louis. They hold royal titles but have no connection to the family those titles represent, no understanding of the institution and history they're theoretically part of. They're being raised in California, disconnected from both their American and British roots, caught in the middle of their parents' war against both families. As 2025 begins, the questions facing Harry and Meghan are profound and existential. Without the Netflix income, how will they maintain their lifestyle and meet their massive expenses? Without any viable career path, how will they remain relevant and financially secure? Without family support or genuine friendships, who will be there for them when the inevitable crises come? Without any sense of purpose beyond self-promotion, what will give their lives meaning as they age? The Thomas Markle surgery incident will be remembered as a defining moment, joining the Oprah interview during Prince Philip's illness as evidence of who Harry and Meghan truly are beneath the carefully crafted public image. These moments matter because they reveal character in ways that scripted appearances and managed content cannot. They show what people prioritize when faced with real moral choices. They demonstrate whether someone possesses basic human empathy or has lost that capacity entirely in pursuit of fame and commercial success. For Thomas Markle, lying in a hospital bed recovering from surgery that permanently changed his life, his daughter's promotional Instagram post while he fought for survival said everything that needed to be said about their relationship and about who she has become. For the rest of us watching this tragedy unfold, the incident provided a stark reminder that character matters, that family matters, that timing matters, and that some choices reveal the truth about people in ways they can never escape. The late Queen Elizabeth II, who died on September 8, 2022, understood the importance of duty, of putting others before yourself, of maintaining dignity even in the most difficult circumstances. She served for 70 years, through personal tragedies and public crises, never wavering in her commitment to country and institution. She maintained her family relationships even when they were difficult, showed compassion even to those who disappointed her, demonstrated grace under pressure that inspired millions. Harry and Meghan have rejected everything the Queen represented. They've chosen self-interest over duty, grievance over grace, commercial exploitation over service. They've severed family relationships rather than working to maintain them. They've shown cruelty rather than compassion, particularly toward Thomas Markle, whose only crime was making mistakes while under intense pressure and then desperately wanting to remain part of his daughter's life. The contrast between Queen Elizabeth's lifetime of service and Harry and Meghan's years of self-promotion could not be more stark. It's a contrast that defines their legacy, that explains their declining popularity, that predicts their likely future. Because in the end, people recognize authenticity. They distinguish between genuine service and performative virtue. They understand the difference between someone who lives their values and someone who merely talks about them. Meghan Markle talks about family while cutting off her father during his medical crisis. She talks about traditions while destroying every tradition and relationship that once defined her life. She talks about connection while being fundamentally disconnected from basic human empathy. And Harry, once a beloved prince who honored his mother's legacy through meaningful charitable work, has become someone who participates in comedy stunts while his father-in-law fights for life in surgery. This is who they are now. This is what they have become. The Thomas Markle surgery incident removed any remaining doubt, stripped away any remaining illusions, revealed the truth that many had suspected but some had hoped wasn't real. Harry and Meghan prioritized their public image and commercial ventures over everything else, including family, including decency, including the basic human impulse to pause during a loved one's medical crisis. History will remember this moment alongside the Oprah interview during Prince Philip's illness. Future biographers will analyze these incidents as revealing the fundamental character flaws that destroyed Harry and Meghan's credibility and doomed their post-royal careers. And Thomas Markle, recovering from his life-changing surgery, will remember that his daughter chose to promote her husband's comedy appearance rather than acknowledge his medical crisis, confirming once and for all that the loving relationship they once shared has been irretrievably destroyed. What choices will define your life? What will you prioritize when faced with conflicts between personal advancement and family obligations? How will you respond when loved ones face crises and need your support? These are the questions Harry and Meghan's story forces us to confront. Because their failure isn't just about royal drama or celebrity gossip. It's about fundamental human values, about the choices that reveal who we really are, about the price we pay when we lose sight of what truly matters in pursuit of fame, fortune, and commercial success. Share your thoughts on this defining moment in royal history. Consider what it reveals about character, about family, about the importance of timing and empathy, and basic human decency. Because this story matters not just for what it tells us about Harry and Meghan, but for what it reminds us about ourselves, about the values we want to live by, about the kind of people we want to be when faced with our own moral choices. The deeper implications of the Thomas Markle surgery incident extend far beyond one family's dysfunction. They speak to broader questions about celebrity culture, about the monetization of trauma and grievance, about what happens when people become so consumed by their public image that they lose touch with basic human values. Harry and Meghan have become case studies in how privilege, victimhood, and commercial ambition can combine to create something toxic, something that repels the very audiences they're trying to attract. Consider the trajectory of their post-royal careers. They left the royal family in January 2020 claiming they wanted privacy, wanted to protect their mental health, wanted to escape the intense media scrutiny that Harry believed had killed his mother. Yet in the 4 years since that departure, they have courted publicity relentlessly. They've done tell-all interviews, produced documentary series about themselves, written memoirs revealing private family conversations, launched lifestyle brands dependent on their royal connections. The contradiction between their stated desire for privacy and their actual behavior could not be more glaring. This contradiction extends to their treatment of family members. They've accused the royal family of being cold, unsupportive, failing to protect Meghan from racist media coverage. They've painted themselves as victims of an institution that values protocol over people, tradition over compassion. Yet their own treatment of Thomas Markle reveals a coldness that makes the royal family look positively warm by comparison. At least the royal family maintained contact with Harry and Meghan even during the worst periods of conflict. At least they tried to find compromises to maintain relationships despite profound disagreements. Meghan has done none of this with her father. She's simply erased him, as if he never existed, as if his decades of love and sacrifice meant nothing. The psychological dynamics at play are complex and troubling. Some mental health experts who've analyzed the couple's public behavior suggest that Meghan may exhibit traits associated with narcissistic personality disorder, an inflated sense of self-importance, a need for excessive admiration, a lack of empathy for others, a tendency to exploit relationships for personal gain, an inability to recognize or care about others' feelings and needs. These traits would explain her treatment of her father, her pattern of severed relationships, her apparent inability to see how her behavior appears to others. Harry's role in enabling this behavior is equally troubling. As a member of the royal family, Harry was raised with certain values: duty, service, putting country and institution before personal desires. He saw his grandmother exemplify these values for 70 years. He saw his father struggle, but ultimately prioritize duty over personal happiness. He understood, or should have understood, the difference between serving something larger than yourself and simply serving yourself. Yet Harry has abandoned all of these values in favor of supporting Meghan's agenda. He's cut off his family, his friends, his country. He's participated in commercial ventures that demean the institution he was born into. He's made accusations against family members that he cannot substantiate. He's allowed his wife to treat her father with cruelty while remaining silent. Every choice he's made since leaving royal life has been about prioritizing Meghan, about maintaining his marriage, about validating her perspective regardless of whether that perspective aligns with reality or basic human decency. Some observers believe Harry is trapped in a pattern common to many people who marry controlling partners. He's invested so much in the relationship, burned so many bridges to maintain it, isolated himself so completely from alternative perspectives that he cannot afford to admit he made a mistake. To acknowledge that Meghan's treatment of her father is wrong would require acknowledging that perhaps her treatment of his family was wrong too. To admit that their commercial ventures are failing would require confronting the reality that leaving royal life was a catastrophic error. To recognize that they've become unpopular because of their own choices would require accepting responsibility rather than blaming racism, media bias, or family cruelty. The psychological cost of this sustained self-deception must be enormous. Harry has given up everything for this marriage: his family, his country, his military connections, his charitable work, his reputation, his dignity. He's approaching 40 years old with no meaningful relationships outside his immediate household, no career prospects, no clear path forward. He's raising children who will grow up confused about their identity, disconnected from their heritage, bearing titles from a country and family they have no relationship with. The sadness of this situation is profound, made worse by the knowledge that it was all avoidable, all the result of choices that Harry made and continues to make. The Thomas Markle surgery incident crystallizes all of these dynamics into one devastating moment. It shows Harry enabling Meghan's cruelty toward her father by participating in the comedy stunt and remaining silent about her promotional post. It demonstrates their shared inability to prioritize appropriately, to recognize when commercial considerations should yield to human concerns. It reveals the emptiness at the heart of their lives, the way they've replaced genuine relationships and meaningful purpose with hollow publicity stunts and failing commercial ventures. The incident also exposes the fundamental hypocrisy of their public advocacy. Harry and Meghan position themselves as champions of mental health, of compassion, of breaking down stigma around emotional struggles. Harry has spoken extensively about his own mental health challenges following his mother's death. Meghan has discussed experiencing suicidal thoughts during her time as a working royal. They've created content about the importance of checking in on loved ones, of showing empathy, of supporting people through difficult times. Yet, when Meghan's own father faced a life-threatening medical crisis when he was quite literally fighting for his life in surgery, she chose to promote her husband's comedy appearance on social media. This is not the behavior of someone genuinely committed to mental health and compassion. This is the behavior of someone who uses the language of mental health and compassion as branding, as a way to position themselves favorably in the public eye, without actually embodying those values in their personal lives and relationships. The contrast with other members of the royal family is instructive. When Catherine announced her cancer diagnosis in March 2024, she did so with characteristic grace and dignity. She explained her situation clearly, acknowledged how difficult it was for her family, expressed hope that sharing her experience might help others facing similar challenges. She then largely withdrew from public life to focus on her treatment and recovery, returning to duties only when she felt able to do so. There was no commercialization of her illness, no tell-all interviews, no attempts to leverage her suffering for publicity or financial gain. Just quiet strength and a focus on what truly mattered: her health and her family. King Charles, diagnosed with cancer shortly after ascending to the throne, showed similar dignity. He shared his diagnosis publicly, continued his duties as much as his health permitted, maintained his characteristic commitment to service even while undergoing treatment. He didn't use his illness as an excuse to attack his family or to generate sympathy. He simply carried on, demonstrating the same dedication to duty that had defined his entire life. These examples of how to handle health crises with dignity make Harry and Meghan's behavior during Thomas Markle's surgery even more shameful by comparison. They had models all around them, both in Harry's family and in countless others who face medical emergencies with grace and appropriate prioritization. They chose instead to proceed with their promotional activities, to treat a father's medical crisis as just another day for self-promotion, to demonstrate conclusively that their commercial interests trump everything else, including basic humanity. The long-term consequences of the Thomas Markle surgery incident will likely be severe and lasting. Public trust, once lost, is extraordinarily difficult to rebuild. Harry and Meghan have now had multiple defining moments of terrible judgment, terrible timing, terrible prioritization. The Oprah interview during Prince Philip's illness, the memoir, Attacking Charles and William while Charles battled cancer, the lifestyle brand launch on the day of Catherine's cancer announcement, and now this, the promotion of entertainment content while Thomas Markle fought for his life in surgery. Each incident individually might be forgiven or explained away, but the pattern is undeniable and damning. This is who Harry and Meghan are. They do not adjust their behavior based on circumstances. They do not pause out of respect for others. They do not recognize when the context demands sensitivity and restraint. They simply proceed with their agenda regardless of timing, regardless of optics, regardless of basic human decency. This pattern will follow them for the rest of their lives. Future projects will be evaluated through this lens. Audiences will remember how they behaved during these defining moments. Employers and partners will hesitate before associating with them, knowing that they cannot be counted on to exercise good judgment or appropriate sensitivity. The brand damage is likely permanent, particularly in markets like the United Kingdom, where their favorability ratings have collapsed to historic lows. The financial implications are equally severe. Without the Netflix income, Harry and Meghan face a substantial shortfall between their expenses and their revenue. Their Montecito mansion alone costs an estimated $25,000 per month in mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. Security costs reportedly run between $2 million and $3 million annually. They employ multiple staff members for household management, childcare, and various other functions. They have lifestyle expenses commensurate with maintaining an image of wealth and success. All of this adds up to annual expenses likely exceeding $10 million. Their income sources are drying up. The Netflix deal is ending without renewal. The Spotify podcast was canceled after one season. Meghan's lifestyle brand has failed to launch any actual products. Harry's memoir sales have declined to a trickle after the initial rush. Speaking fees and appearance payments have decreased as their popularity has waned. They're approaching a financial crisis that will force difficult choices about their lifestyle, their staffing, potentially even their housing. Some royal watchers predict that financial pressure will ultimately force Harry and Meghan to attempt some form of reconciliation with the royal family. They may have no choice but to swallow their pride, apologize for their attacks, and accept whatever terms Charles and William might offer for a return to royal life in some capacity. But the Thomas Markle surgery incident makes even this unlikely scenario less plausible. How can they reconcile with Harry's family while continuing to treat Meghan's father with such cruelty? How can they claim to have learned from their mistakes while making the same mistakes repeatedly? The impact on their children cannot be overstated. Archie is now 5 years old enough to begin asking questions about why he doesn't see his grandfather, his uncle, his cousins. Lilibet is 3, still young, but growing up in the same isolated environment. Both children are being raised with royal titles, but no connection to the institution those titles represent. They're being told stories about racism and cruelty that drove their parents from the United Kingdom, stories that will shape how they understand their own identity and heritage. But someday, these children will be old enough to research their parents' history, to read the interviews and watch the documentaries, to form their own judgments about who was right and who was wrong in the family conflicts that defined their early lives. They'll see footage of their grandfather Thomas begging for contact with his daughter and grandchildren. They'll read about the Oprah interview during Prince Philip's illness and the promotional post during Thomas's surgery. They'll be able to evaluate their parents' choices with adult perspective and critical thinking. What will Archie and Lilibet conclude when they're old enough to understand? Will they accept their parents' narrative that everyone else was wrong and cruel? Or will they recognize patterns of behavior that suggest their parents were the ones making destructive choices, burning bridges, prioritizing commercial success over family relationships? Will they resent being raised in isolation from both sides of their family? Will they blame their parents for depriving them of relationships with grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins? These questions are impossible to answer now, but they loom over Harry and Meghan's future. Children raised in isolated, narcissistic family systems often struggle as they enter adulthood and gain perspective on their upbringing. They may feel they were used as props in their parents' public narrative, that their needs were subordinated to their parents' commercial ventures and publicity campaigns. They may seek out the relationships their parents denied them, attempting to connect with the families they were taught to view as enemies. The precedent here is concerning. Diana, Princess of Wales, spoke extensively about her sons to the media, discussed her struggles in ways that put enormous pressure on William and Harry as children. Both boys, particularly Harry, have spoken as adults about how difficult it was to grow up with their family drama playing out publicly, to have their mother's pain and their parents' failed marriage constantly discussed in the media. Yet Harry is now doing the same thing to his own children, using them as supporting characters in his and Meghan's public narrative, raising them in an environment where family conflict is not only present but monetized and publicized. The cycle of dysfunction continues, passed from generation to generation, with each iteration becoming more public, more commercialized, more disconnected from the values of service and duty that once defined the royal family. Diana, for all her faults, never completely severed her relationship with the institution. She continued charitable work, maintained some connections with the royal family, tried in her own way to prepare her sons for their roles. Harry has done none of this. He's walked away completely, taking his children with him into isolation and estrangement. The historical parallel is not with Diana but with Harry's great-great-uncle, Edward VIII, who abdicated the throne in 1936 to marry Wallis Simpson. Edward, like Harry, chose personal desire over duty. He, like Harry, moved abroad and spent the rest of his life in exile from the institution and family he'd abandoned. He, like Harry, gave interviews criticizing the royal family and revealing private information. He, like Harry, never found meaningful purpose or happiness after his abdication, spending decades drifting between residences, attending parties, seeking relevance that always eluded him. Edward died in 1972, having been Duke of Windsor for 36 years, longer than he'd been king for less than 1 year. His legacy is defined not by his brief reign but by his abdication, his choice of personal happiness over duty, his exile and estrangement. History has not been kind to Edward, viewing him as weak, selfish, unsuited for the responsibilities he was born into. Future historians will likely draw similar conclusions about Harry, seeing him as someone who had every advantage, every opportunity to make a meaningful contribution, but chose instead to pursue personal grievances and commercial ventures. The Thomas Markle surgery incident will feature prominently in these historical assessments. It will be cited as evidence of the moral bankruptcy at the heart of Harry and Meghan's post-royal life. It will be compared to the Oprah interview during Prince Philip's illness as proof of a pattern of terrible judgment and worse priorities. It will be used to illustrate how completely Harry had abandoned the values he was raised with, how thoroughly Meghan had isolated him from any moderating influences. But history's judgment, however harsh, pales beside the immediate human cost. Thomas Markle, recovering from his surgery in the Philippines, knows that his daughter chose to promote entertainment content rather than acknowledge his medical crisis. That knowledge must be devastating, the final confirmation that the loving relationship they once shared is truly gone, that the daughter he raised and sacrificed for has become someone unrecognizable, someone capable of cruelty he never imagined. Samantha Markle, watching her father struggle through recovery, knows that Meghan chose commerce over compassion, that no medical crisis is severe enough to pierce her sister's armor of self-absorption and commercial calculation. The Markle family's private pain has become public spectacle, another data point in the ongoing saga of Harry and Meghan's dysfunctional relationships and terrible choices. The royal family, particularly King Charles and Prince William, has watched this latest incident with a mixture of sadness and vindication. They tried to warn Harry. They tried to help Meghan adapt to royal life. They tried to find compromises that would allow Harry and Meghan to pursue their vision while maintaining family relationships. All of those attempts failed, rebuffed by a couple who viewed every suggestion as an attack, every attempt at guidance as evidence of racism or cruelty. Now, watching Harry participate in comedy stunts while his father-in-law fights for life in surgery, Charles and William must feel both grief for what Harry has become and relief that they drew the boundaries they did. Harry and Meghan cannot be trusted. They cannot be relied upon to exercise good judgment. They cannot be allowed back into working royal life, where their behavior would reflect on the institution and potentially cause diplomatic or political problems. The door that remained slightly ajar despite everything has now closed completely, locked by Harry and Meghan's own repeated demonstrations of their unsuitability for any role involving responsibility or trust. The public, too, has rendered its verdict. The polling numbers tell a clear story. People across the political spectrum, in multiple countries, have concluded that Harry and Meghan are hypocrites who preach compassion while demonstrating cruelty, who claim to value privacy while courting publicity, who position themselves as victims while attacking others. The Thomas Markle surgery incident reinforced these perceptions, providing fresh evidence that confirmed what many already believed. Even among demographics that once supported Harry and Meghan, the support has collapsed. Young people, who initially found their story romantic and their willingness to break with tradition inspiring, have grown tired of the constant complaints and commercialization. Progressive activists, who hoped Harry and Meghan would use their platform to advance important causes, have been disappointed by the couple's focus on personal grievances and lifestyle branding. Americans, who welcomed them as refugees from royal stuffiness, have come to see them as privileged complainers with an inflated sense of their own importance. This collapse in public support matters not just for Harry and Meghan's egos, but for their commercial viability. Brands partner with celebrities because those celebrities can influence consumer behavior, drive sales, create positive associations. But Harry and Meghan have become toxic rather than aspirational. Associating with them risks backlash, negative publicity, damage to brand reputation. This is why their commercial ventures keep failing, why partners like Netflix and Spotify have walked away, why Meghan's lifestyle brand cannot find investors or retail partners willing to take the risk. The future, then, looks bleak for a couple who once had the world at their feet. They're in their early 40s, an age when most people are hitting their professional stride, building on years of experience and accumulated expertise. But Harry and Meghan have nothing to build on. They've burned every bridge, alienated every potential ally, demonstrated repeatedly that they lack the judgment, the empathy, and the basic decency required for sustained success in any field. Their only asset is their royal connection, but they've devalued that asset through constant exploitation and attack. The novelty of royal insiders telling all has worn off. The accusations have been made, the private conversations revealed, the family drama exhaustively documented. What more is there to say? What new revelations remain? What audience is still interested in hearing Harry and Meghan complain about how badly they've been treated? The answer, increasingly, is no one. And that realization must be terrifying for a couple whose entire post-royal strategy has been built on monetizing their grievances and their royal connections. When those assets are exhausted, when no one wants to hear it anymore, what do they have left? What skills, what expertise, what authentic passion or purpose can they offer? Meghan's attempt to position herself as a lifestyle guru has failed spectacularly. She has no particular expertise in cooking, entertaining, fashion, or any of the areas she's trying to claim authority in. Her special was panned by critics and mocked by viewers. Her brand has failed to launch. She's competing in a crowded market against people with genuine skills, years of experience, authentic voices, and loyal audiences built over decades of consistent work. She brings nothing to that competition except her title and her willingness to talk about herself. Harry's situation is even more dire. He has no skills beyond what his royal upbringing provided. He's not a particularly compelling speaker. He has no expertise to share. His charitable work, once genuine and impactful, has been overshadowed by his commercial ventures and personal attacks on his family. He's burned his bridges with the military, the one community where he found authentic purpose and connection. He's isolated himself from everyone who might help him find a path forward. Like and subscribe to follow this story as it continues to unfold, as the consequences of Harry and Meghan's choices become clearer, as their future grows more uncertain, as their past catches up with them. Because one thing is certain, the story of Harry and Meghan, of royal privilege squandered and relationships destroyed, of commercial ambition triumphing over human decency, is far from over. New chapters are being written every day, new failures emerging, new bridges burning. We'll be here to help you understand what it all means, to provide context and perspective, to remember the moments that define people and reveal their true character. Because in the end, character is destiny, and Harry and Meghan's character has been revealed clearly, unmistakably, in ways they can never hide or escape.